Hello there, wonderful people. Thank you so much for tuning in to the BTPA, the Bowen Therapy Professional Association podcast here today with me, Ben Calder. And we have got an absolutely amazing discussion here today with Kathryn Hamer, Bowen practitioner who's based up in Blackburn. She has been a Bowen practitioner since 2019. She is a level 1 teacher for the College of Bowen studies, a mindfulness coach, does Fascia Bowen, has a BSc in sociology and social psychology, which are all wonderful things to hear. And the big thing that we're going to be talking about today is drug and alcohol recovery. And Kathryn has been incredibly open in sharing her really, really moving story of how she was in a very, very difficult place and how Bowen Technique began her journey back through recovery and the transformation that happened thanks partially to her mum, who was a Bowen practitioner, and helped her within 3 treatments to recover from a serious carpal tunnel issue that she was told that she probably wouldn't have proper use of her hands and would require surgery to fix. And yet in 3 treatments, Bowen Technique sorted that one out. It's a really, really moving story and very beautiful. And I'm so grateful for Kathryn for being so open with us here today. But it speaks to some of the beauty of what Bowen can achieve. So we're going to get on with the interview in just a moment. But before we do, please make sure you hit the subscribe and like buttons, share this so that we can help more people understand the versatility and the benefit of Bowen Technique. Let's get on with the interview. Hello, Kathryn. Thank you so much for joining me here today. It's a real pleasure to have you on the BTPA podcast.
Great to be here. Thanks, Ben, for asking me.
Yeah, no problem at all. And I love the fact that today we're going to have quite a different conversation from the ones that we typically have with the BTPA. You know, we've talked over the last year or so to a lot of different teachers about a lot of different types of approach. But today we've got kind of more of a personalized story coming through and something that I think is really important as an area to look at how Bowen is benefiting the public. And we'll kind of get deeper into all of that stuff a little bit later on. But to start with, what I'd like is just a little bit of a potted history of you. How did you get to this point where you are now, and what introduced you to Bowen Technique?
How did I get to Bowen? So I can't remember. So I was brought up in a house full of, with my parents with a medical model. Dad's a dentist. He was up until the age of 82 in lockdown when he was forced to retire. If it was up to him, he'd still be at it. And he's like 87 now. Pretty amazing. And my mum had extensive background in nursing and then health visiting. And then she was a senior lecturer at a university teaching the health to access students that wanted to get into university. And so my household, we didn't talk holistic health. We just didn't. And what happened, unbeknown to us all, really, my mum had a very stressful job. She also had a very chaotic daughter that was trapped in very dark, deep addiction for many, many years. And all this had taken its toll. And I think it was a colleague of hers that introduced her to this Bowen therapy that she'd been having, and she needed it. You know, my mum's not one for popping pills, going to the doctors. It's like, I can sort this through. My mum is a workaholic. She's a studyaholic. You know, she's thirsty for knowledge. And I guess that's kind of, she's passed that down to me now. I think she was having it on the quiet. She didn't want anyone to know that she was having Bowen therapy, you know, because no one knew what it was. Yes, we would have judged it. We did. I know I certainly didn't take any interest in it when she was studying it and she started doing it, and she became a different woman. Very grounded, very content. Not that she wasn't already, but it just seemed to make her heart sink. And I think I had the horrible judgment of, she's going through the change, leave her to it. That sort of outlook. And I wasn't interested in it until I needed it. And I didn't know that I needed it straight away because I didn't understand or take any interest in it until I had carpal tunnel. And when I say I had carpal tunnel, it wasn't just a, oof, that hurts. It was locked. I was locked. I couldn't brush my hair. I couldn't touch anything. It felt like I had absolutely no skin. I couldn't pick the phone up. I had been to see my GP, and my GP basically said, here's a load of tramadol, which was like, yes, to somebody like me. And he said, I'll put you on the list because that needs to have surgery. And by the way, you'll never work with your hands again, and you're always going to have to wear wrist support.
Wow.
So I think I was in the depths of addiction at the time when I was having Bowen therapy, and my relationship with my family was very fraught because of the lifestyle that I was in. And so we didn't really communicate much. We just couldn't. It was hurting them, ending massive arguments. But my mum knew what she did could help me. So we didn't even talk. She just sort of came to pick me up, took me back to the family home, took me on the couch, didn't explain anything about this. And she started treating me, and she kept leaving the room. And I remember just being like, what are you playing at? Why have you brought me here? You keep leaving me. And she just said, just shut up. Lie there. Just, you'll be okay. Anyway, so after the first session, she took me back to where I was living. And I was still like this. And I thought, what a load of rubbish. That. But for some reason, when she told me to be in the same place at the same time the following week, for whatever reason, I was there. I knew, I was just there. And she came and picked me up, took me back, and she treated me again. And she started, what I now know to be the elbow procedure, the carpal tunnel procedure thing, and I just started to feel, for the very first time in probably about 23 years, I started to feel a calmness that I had been seeking in all that time. And if that's all I was going to get from this stuff, then that was fine by me. Because I had a plan B. All the doctors had a plan B. They were going to cut me open and do the operation, and I'd be all right. And for some reason, I was in the same place at the same time the following week. But by this time, yes, I was in agony. Yes, it was very, very painful, but I had slight movement. And on the third session, I just remember her sitting me up after the third session, and she said, okay, darling, she said, this is going to hurt like hell, but please trust me. Just try. And my hands just went like that.
Wow.
And I have never had carpal tunnel syndrome since.
Wow. Incredible stuff. And such an act of trust by you as well when you're in such pain, when that relationship in the family is challenged, to just allow yourself to surrender to that process, not getting so much out of it off that first session, which again, as we know, is a very common result in Bowen. Sometimes that first session doesn't seem to have done a lot, but then from the second and the third sessions to have such significant change, that must have taken quite a lot for you to just step into that space and be willing to let mum treat you at that point.
Yeah, because I was full of shame, full of guilt, knew what I looked like, and I didn't look or sound like their daughter, knowing the life that I was leading and knowing that they knew, but they didn't know the extent of what, because I was lying. I had to. I thought as soon as I start, well, I didn't know how to be honest, because that's what addiction had took from me over the 23 years. And I would go this far. I was almost mute for 2.5 years. So that's how I know there's no placebo effect with this, because it wasn't explained to me. I didn't need to know what the outcome was going to be. This is all in hindsight. I just went with it, and my body and my brain did the rest, and it was given the right information. And I have never suffered since. And Bowen actually brought, gradually and slowly and tentatively, just like the treatment itself, and kindly brought our family back together. So it hasn't just stopped the pain of my carpal tunnel. It started a different trajectory for us as a family. And I can't put a price on that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean that's such a I mean, I know we're only at the beginning of this story as well. There's so much more that we're yet to unwrap here today, but what a beautiful way to go from that point where you were in such difficulty, such challenge, hiding so much, holding so much in, to start to feel. And again, it's a beautiful metaphor within Bowen, this kind of gradual opening, softening, starting to feel back into our own space again.
Yeah, absolutely. The realignment of, don't know, there's just vast laws and forces at work of which we can't measure, we can't weigh it, but they're happening, and the evidence is sat here today and over at my mum and dad's house today.
And so how has that progressed from that point of you having that work for the carpal tunnel? How did that move forward to the point where you decided to train in Bowen yourself?
So when I got clean and sober, that was in 2010, almost 15 years. Wow. I just went straight into, I want to save everybody mode. I know if I can get clean and sober, I need to get a job in a drug and alcohol service. And I volunteered for a couple of years, until I at least got some sort of, well, I had to learn how to communicate again because I'd lost the ability to have a conversation. So volunteering helped greatly with that. And within that service, a job role came up. And I went for it and I got the job. And I started working as a recovery worker coordinator for this drug and alcohol service. But it was very, very, very clear to me that that's not where I was meant to be, because I was seeing things that I just thought that this can't be real. There are people being put on medication they don't need, to keep them in a system that wants to keep them down. And I'm not saying that for all, because that there are quite a few people that do succeed, but not many.
Mm-hmm.
Not many. Just I had a mental and emotional breakdown while I was working, because I'd swapped one addiction for the other. Getting paid for 37 hours, doing 70. I go above and beyond for everybody. And I mean, I didn't know when people had time to eat or sleep or shower. It was like, because I'm busy saving the world here. And I had it was a lesson. It was part of my story that has to be told, because then I started having a lot more Bowen therapy. Mom, come to the rescue again. Bowen therapy has always been a big part of it. And just one day, I got a phone call from my mum, and I'll never forget when it was. It was on her golden wedding anniversary, and my dad had he'd taken her to Goa, to this beautiful hotel, and she rang me from this hotel. And she just said, I'm just sat here. I just feel like I need to ask you a question. Why aren't you studying to be a Bowen therapist? But you don't stop talking about it. You're always having it. You're always sending people to me. Kate, you're really unhappy and unwell in your job. It's not meant to be like that. And obviously I'm listening to her because she's had that experience where, she was at a junction in her life, and she decided to change it. And she planted the seed, and I was like, right, I'm going to give Joe a ring then. So I phoned Joe straight after this conversation. So that was back in 2018. She just said, would you believe it? Would you believe it, Kate? Someone's just dropped out. First module starts next month. I was like, brilliant. Handed my resignation in without a thought, not thinking, oh no, I've got a mortgage to pay. And I just thought, if I don't do it, it's going to kill me. That job's going to kill me. I might relapse, I'm on a knife edge here. I might relapse. I might this, I might that. All this stuff was going around in my head, but I saw a way out. And it just ignited something in me when it was put to me, did you know that you'd be a really good therapist, Kate? I was like, no, it's not even crossed my mind. So yeah, 4 weeks later, I'm down in Bury St Edmunds with Jo and her skeleton and all these couches. And I was just like a kid at Christmas. It was like, right, I'm just going to be like a sponge and absorb everything. And that's where it all sort of started, and I have not looked back.
Beautiful. I mean, for me, it's quite a moving story to listen to how much of a change that created in you. And I'm kind of curious as well, because I know from my own history, I know from the work that I've done, that a lot of the times when people are accessing non-prescription medications and even prescription medications that they become dependent on, addicted to, essentially there's an attempt to try and change a state from one that is dysregulated, uncomfortable, feels out of sorts, into something where we've got some sense of centering, balance, grounding, control, focus. Did you find that there was something about receiving Bowen that allowed the nervous system to run through a similar pathway to what you were getting from the substances that you were addicted to?
Oh, you might make me cry now. The answer is yes. So I had tried psychotherapy, CBT, mutual aid support groups, praying, meditating, walking, eating seaweed soup, studying, work, you name it. I had tried everything to get some sort of ease and comfort so that I could feel like a human being that was able to go wherever I was needed and be useful. That was my only wish when I got clean. I just want to be useful, because I've been useless and I've been hopeless. So when I get clean and sober, I'm going to be giving the hope shot. I'm going to be useful. I'm going to be talking about this, and I'm going to be smashing stigma around it as well, as much as I can. Why would I hide something so fundamentally ruinous and just write people off just because, oh, there's no hope for them? Because that's been said to me, there's no hope for you. You're never going to get clean. You're never going to, you just, well, people died. People died around me, and that's what I was resigned to, and I accepted it. It was okay. I mean, how sad's that? And then what I found was I was so disconnected from my body. I didn't feel like a human being. I just felt like a thing. My thinking was fast. My body was doing something completely different, and I was constantly in a state of dis-ease. I was not at ease, no matter what I did. But I'll never forget, even in the depths and the darkness of my addiction, that very first session of Bowen therapy I had, I might have got about 5 minutes sleep that night. Now to some that might strike horror, 5 minutes. But 5 minutes of peace of mind to somebody that is in such great turmoil. I've never found a drug that could give me that. And then over the last 15 years, each time I have it, I might feel like I don't need it, but I'll go and have it. And then afterwards I go, oh, I was becoming a bit unsteady, bit internally unstable. So what it's done for me is all the things that I've tried, it brought all the modalities together and made it all make sense. Because I remember that was something that was on loop. Please, can somebody make it make sense? Because I don't know why I got clean. So no, I didn't have, on paper, I have no children. You know, I know people get clean for that reason, you know, because they want to become a great parent or they want to do it because of this. But I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this. This is hard. But Bowen therapy made it all make sense slowly over time, you know, and brought me back. I'm not even going to say back to me, brought me into a space where I felt in the present moment, and I have never in my life, I can remember ever being in the present. I'm always way over there, or why did I do that and say that 10 years ago? You know, it's either way in the past or way in the future. I'm never in the moment. And that is why I found life so difficult up until being the recipient of such a beautiful therapy, because I needed something very gentle and very loving to make me feel safe. And that's all I wanted. Safety and peace, if only for a few minutes. That gave me the hope that I needed and ignited something inside me that was like, wow, this is futuristic business, this, because no one's talking about it. And I know I'm gonna, when I've got my voice and I know how to use it properly, I'm going to non-stop be talking about this.
And it's amazing in the sense that from a basic Bowen point of view, we're not doing any analysis. We're not trying to create a judgment of how we get to where we are. We're just dealing with what's presented in that moment. Here is this person, this body, this life as it is, with the sum total of everything that has and hasn't happened to it. And we can apply this technique, and it's going to access the nervous system, it's going to access the meridian system, it's going to access the fascia network, and how all of that changes neurotransmission, hormonal transmission, so many different things. And we're going to let the body do what it wants to do with that, rather than, you know, I often create this kind of distinction between, say, massage and Bowen, which is that in massage, we're going to push you to where I think you ought to be because that's my assessment of you. Whereas Bowen is a question. Bowen is, when I do this here, what do you want to do with it? And that's where the hands-off bit is so important, because it's kind of like, I'm curious about this part of you. What can we now do? How can we just leave that? And what do you want to do with it without any expectation that you're going to do anything with it?
Yeah. That's
And
it.
would you say that that's kind of, in your experience, you know, having received so much Bowen around this transformation that you've been having, is that, you know, would you say that, that's accurate to the type of experience that you were having? Is that there was no pressure to become a thing, and so it just allowed that softening and sinking into that space where it was just okay?
Yeah. I think I caught up on 23 years of sleep deprivation every time I asked Jo. When I was training, she had problems waking me up. I mean, I was that deep in a state of, I was just gone. You know, and this is like 8 years into my sobriety journey. Awful lot of whatever it is that is going on in my system, you know, it didn't get like that overnight. It isn't gonna get like that in 3 weeks. It's not gonna get like I am today in 3 weeks. So it's been and will continue to be a lifetime of healing, awakenings, letting go, simplifying, because I am a complicate. It's me that does it. I will overcomplicate anything when actually it's dead simple. And that's what blows my mind every single time I have somebody on that couch, you know, and I can feel their release happening. And it ain't really me that, well, I'm just like the dinner lady, really. It's like I'm just here to serve the information, you know, and the body and the brain is just going to go off and do its, then the nervous system is just going to go off and do its thing because it knows each other. you know, and it's just beautiful to see somebody sit up after their first session and you know what it is. It's like they're in the present for the first time. And I just look at them and they look at me and they'll just go, "What just happened?" And I went, "I don't know. You tell me. I don't need to know, but you know, I can relate. I can relate." And
Yeah. Although I wanna give a shout out to dinner ladies here because there's no just dinner ladies. You know,
no,
we all know that there are dinner ladies who made dinner and there are dinner ladies who made dinner times harder, you know. So again, there I think it's always really important because if we see ourselves as not an important part of this process, we think that how we are, how we present ourselves, the presence that we bring into any treatment then has no bearing. And that's so the opposite of the truth. So part of that response is about who you are as that character. And you know, you kind of remind me a little bit of, I remember years ago training with a Chinese grandmaster, and he would say to me, "See, that's easy, isn't it?" And I'd say, "No, it's simple. There's a difference." You know, it's not easy, it's just simple. And it is a journey, it is a process over time. Like 35 years now of practicing qigong as a way of regulating myself, and I feel like I'm making progress. I
amazing.
feel like I'm better in control and better centered and better grounded and better present than I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. and and it's kind of the excitement of the future ahead, is that you know there's still this pathway ahead and that there's so much more to just unfold into presence, that arriving as we are and deepening into that process, that you know that Bowen just gives us that beautiful moment to just come back into the self.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love the way you speak.
Thank you very much.
Very, very calming. It's very, very soothing. Yeah.
That's a lot of deliberate practice as well. That's a lot of really becoming aware of the consequence of language and observing how it points to things. And so when we're using language, how conscious are we aware of where we're shining the spotlight and where we're leading people towards? And I, you know, again, I'd like to hear your experience in the clinic on this, of how the words we use, the response that they can create in our clients before, during, and after a session, and the difference that that can make in the safety that the client experiences, their ability to allow themselves to relax. Because I think as well, you know, listening to those first sessions that you had with your mum, you know, it's not a surprise that in that first session, there's a part of you that's not ready to release. I don't know if I'm safe. I don't know if it's okay to unfold this part of me that I'm just closing up and holding. And through that second session, through that third session, the nervous system is just gaining that information and able to create that transformation. So I'm curious how you experience that in clinic for yourself and in your own experience receiving as well.
Do you mean sort of the energy that we bring and the in my clinic? Okay. No, I think it's for me, there's an awful lot that I need to do. I'm not one of these people that just wakes up and is grateful and spiritual and ever present. I'm just not. I have to work so hard at that, and I have to spend many, many hours doing the things that are suggested for somebody that has the illness of addiction. Just because I'm not using doesn't mean I'm. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm cured. It means I'm in recovery, or I'm recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. Yes, that's true, but I need to enlarge on my spiritual life, and part of that, a big part of that, that has to come before anything else, is giving my time to others that are struggling and taking them through a process that fits so well with Bowen, but we can't affiliate the two, so I'm not going to. Definitely my experience when I've received Bowen, it's been in my mum and dad's home. She's got a beautiful therapy room. It's very much home from home. I mean, I grew up there, you know, so it's like a home I'm familiar with. And one thing that I set out to do when I was practicing was because as I was, you won't know this, but as I was changing my whole life, I was in a very abusive marriage. So I got to experience all that as well. And I thought one day I'll turn this into a superpower as well, just like everything else, and it will help someone else. But as I was training, just knew that because in this home, this is one of those homes when people come into it and they may never have been in this house before. They've got their shoes off in the hall. They feel that chilled, you know, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, listen, that is what it's about, you know, this is what it's about. And they come in and they make themselves home. They know they're safe, you know, and I made it was a big deal for me in lockdown, especially that I made my front room into the sort of therapy room that I would want to walk into. Do you want me to show it you?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Tour us round.
Just here. Okay.
Beautiful.
So
So already the soothing of the blue colours in there.
yeah.
Plants,
Yeah.
light.
And I've got all my plants. I've got this massive monstera that just, I think the energy in here from my clients, you know, and then there's the therapy couch. And in winter, I have
Beautiful.
the fire crackling, and they love it. Just very, very soothing.
Environment is such an important factor of what we're doing within a space. I can remember something that I've done for many, many years, because I've worked from multiple clinics over my time. Over the last kind of 16 years or so, I've gone out and I've worked at a lot of festivals as well to kind of connect with people and share Bowen in very different settings. And one of the things I think is absolutely crucial to do is lie on your own couch and see what you see. So look through the hole and look at the ceiling and notice what your client is going to notice from the perspectives that they're at. Because we often set it up so it works for us. We don't think about what they might be experiencing. So watching that client journey, and you can see there's so much care gone into preparing a space that's really kind of nurturing and soothing people from the moment they come in. And that is one of the cheap but effective tricks we can use as a good therapist is the journey starts before they get to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Conversation on the phone, you know, just being myself seems to do the trick. You know, they know that I'm a northern lass. I say it how it is. I'm able to read between the lines, you know, and get information out of people that they probably wouldn't tell somebody that this is, I'm just surmising here, who has a very clinical environment. I think gone are the days where we need to have a clinical environment, as in the white and the bare and the cold, you know, to have any credibility. It's who we are as a person that really does matter. And, you know, if we are, you can still be spiritual and professional and hard-lined and straight to the point with a very loving aura, and caring outlook without, you know, being a dictator never worked for me. Somebody says, you will do this and I am going to do that. I'll be like, watch it. No, you're not. And yes, I am. I just think to facilitate a healing journey and know that I'm a part of that and being used as a vessel for Bowen through that, you know, and for them to know that they are safe. That is my main goal, really, because I know that from that position of safety, if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, somebody to feel safe in somebody else's home, they've never been here before, I'll speak to them at length, you know, over the phone, before they've even come. know about what to expect. I'll invite them to, check out the reviews. They can give me a message in the meantime, so they know that before their appointment, if they've got any questions, they can just give me a quick WhatsApp and I'll reply.
Mm-hmm.
To make them feel safe and
It's a crucial factor. And when we interviewed David McGetton a couple of weeks back, his podcast is up on the system now, he talked about that fundamentally to help change pain patterns, safety is absolutely essential, that only really from a place of safety do you get lasting change. And, you're also speaking very clearly to something that fundamentally I think is missing in a lot of kind of clinical settings, which is the importance of relationship. And within the integral theory, the kind of the platform that I use for looking at health, we look at the objective side of things, the physical environment, and those objective things that we can point to in time and space as being one side of the coin. But the subjective side, me as an individual, the culture that we're creating as a we space, as you and I, as a practitioner and a client, those things are equally as important in having a successful outcome. So I'm kind of 100% with you that our own personal development and our own awareness of self, which is always going to be an ongoing practice. I for no moment think I'm there. There are so many times when I'll finish a session or I'll reflect back on something and just think, yeah, if I'd have said that different or done that different, or just I didn't interpret that response out of the client as well as I might have, and in reflection, I can see how I do it differently. And quite often, the next time I see the client, I'll kind of explore that and I'll say, look, I'm aware that in that moment, I don't feel like I dealt with that particularly well, and this is what came up for me. And how was that for you? So that there's validation in there as well.
well, we live in such a fast-paced society, and I've gone along with it for a long time. Gone along with it, and look at where it ended me. Do you know what I mean? It's like now we don't have to do that. It's like the simpler the life, the better, the more communication. And like you say, being mindful of the tempo, the tone of voice, the body language, the actively listening to somebody, and they know you are doing that genuinely. And it's been it might be the first time that they've ever experienced that, where somebody's actually put the phone away, hasn't got a pad and pen in front of them, and is just, tell me about that. I'm listening. Like being seen and being heard is quite a couple of the most important commodities, I think, of today's society that I think has been ripped out of people's worlds because of the conditioning. It doesn't matter what you think or say, just do it. Get a grip. It's been proven not to work. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Something has got to have depth. It's got to be weighty. If I've got anything to do with it, and it's got to have depth and weight and meaning for me, and a purpose, destination. Because if you give me a destination, I'm already planning on what's next. There isn't one, is there? There isn't a destination. It's just we're going with it now, and it feels right. And yes, it's bumpy at times, but this is gold. This is gold dust.
And we see it so much in the hollowness of the attention economy of social media. They're striving for attention, for connection, when what people really want is depth and meaning, something that has value, to truly be felt, to truly be received for where they are as well, without, again, fundamentally within our Qigong work, we don't see you as broken. We don't see you as needing fixing. You're arriving as you are. What do you want? What can we support in this space here without thinking that there's something wrong? There's only a process, a journey, a transformation that we're going through from a state that is maybe less beneficial, less facilitating of what it is you want to achieve in life to one where we can move you somewhere else. You know, doesn't kind of matter how we get there, when we get there. We can just take our time on this journey. You're not in a rush. I don't think there's something wrong with you, but what can we do to optimize and revitalize that energy within your system?
Absolutely. It's just all that nourishing, isn't it? It's just like, let's just nourish each other. It's easy. No, it isn't simple. Like you said, you know what I mean? I don't think it's easy, but yes, it is very simple. You need those books that they used to have, computers for dummies and things like that. We just need a guideline for an idiot's guide for complicated people, which in my language is just, let's do things very simple. And it's like, but what do you mean everything's just got so complicated? It's like, no, it's not. And that's what Bowen has given me as well, that the fact that healing doesn't have to be as painful. Growth doesn't have to be as daunting. Purpose doesn't have to be a struggle. All the things that I believed wasn't expected of me lost me my identity. And these were all things that I'd manufactured. The narrative I'd manufactured in my little head, and Bowen has blasted the doors wide open to me to say, you are now on a process, lady, of unlearning everything that you think you are to become who you were created to be anyway. So buckle up, because this is going to be one hell of a beautiful ride, because I've had the first half of life, which was all right, fun at times, but then ended up in very dark, heroin, methadone, crack cocaine addiction. Now I'm in this. When I talk like that and I mention that, it's like I'm talking about somebody else, because we talk about transformation. Bowen has been a huge part in me transforming myself. For once, it allowed me to stay still long enough to be able to study without a chemical shock absorber, and yeah.
I mean, I think it's incredible. Your story is just absolutely inspiring. And, again, it reminds me a lot of Gabor Mate's approach to dealing with trauma and addiction and dysregulation. It's about how do we create that safety for people so that they have that platform to change. But I'm also curious that given that the journey, the position, the experience that's brought you to where you are now, in clinic, are you also seeing that people who have got commonalities in that journey are then attracted into you because of the type of support, the acceptance, the way that you can receive them, where they might not experience that from other practices, other options?
Yeah. Sometimes it's like looking in a mirror. And I know that people are just doing what I did, they're just giving me half a story. Because if they say it out loud, then it makes it real. Now, when we talk about addiction, we generally do we do generally assume we're talking about drugs and alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
No one's talking about the comfort zone or the control, addiction to control. And yes, there's the other ones, the gambling, the sex and porn industry, and this. Everybody's got a vice, Is it impacting their life in a very negative sense? Is it a cycle that they want to break free from? But I'm in a position, because I've got the lived experience, to very gently call it out and say, what you're saying, I want to have a look under the bonnet here. Yeah. And because this is a safe environment to do so. And if you're not ready to discuss that with me at this point, that is absolutely fine. But I guarantee you, at the end of session 1, before they leave, they've started talking about it. After the first session, there's some things that I'm going to write down, Kate, and I'm going to bring it back next week, and I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I don't really understand what the illness of addiction is. You know, what does it actually mean? And I'm like, I don't diagnose anybody. That is entirely up to you. But if you want to discuss this at further, and there's been an awful lot of people that have come here, and we've ended up disclosing stuff, and they've come and had a coffee with some other people that are in recovery / recovered, and they all support each other, and they are now thriving, fully stand up members of society, paying their TV license and their water bills and learning how to function without it. And you know, I do need to give a really big shout out to the organisation that I did work for. So after lockdown, I was involved in a project called the 180 Project, who do some incredible work, and they exist to help anybody that is wanting to break free from any sort of vicious or negative lifestyle cycle that might not be serving them. Now, that can be grief. That can be somebody that is grieving and they have been isolating and in a very dark space with mental health issues, right through to people that just commit crime. They just, because that's the cycle, that's what they know, you know, the neuroplasticity. It's like, that's what I do when I need something, because that's what I've been doing all my life, breaking free from things like that and mental health issues. And we all know that, you know, the opposite of addiction is connection.
Mhm.
And the 180 Project is a community that uses CrossFit as a vessel. Instead of people just sat in a circle talking about the problem, it's people coming together to support and encourage. And right at this heart of that is a whole bunch of spiritual principles that to watch and be a part of that is absolutely, for me, you know, I became employed then by them, and I was doing 3 days a week and doing in my clinic 2 days a week. And I was the female coordinator for that, and, you know, writing group work sessions. And it was just beautiful, hard and heartbreaking at times, but they are thriving. And I just knew it was a couple of months ago, and I was just feeling really convicted about where I'm being called to next, you know, and this has come to a natural end for me in this role. Now I'm needed elsewhere, and it's all in for Bowen. But you know what? There's a lot of research I think we need to do, isn't there? Because all I see, 85%, 95%, if not more, people walking around in fight flight. And
Yeah.
yet there is no funding for things that work. And research, we need to do research, because it is like anything else. You know, I think that Bowen is the missing piece everywhere.
Mhm. Yeah.
Everywhere I go, I just think the one thing that you need is Bowen.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's great to have projects like the 180. We'll make sure there's a link to them in the description below as well, so that anybody listening in can find that. And there's another organisation that I've found super beneficial at the other end of the spectrum, a company called Physiology First, who in the UK are based in Sale, just outside of Manchester. And they specialise in working with teenagers who are experiencing dysregulation for any reason, and they do incredible work using movement, breath, and connection, and their stories are deeply transformative. So thinking about where your story, as it were, began, where that introduction into drug culture began for you, had there been resources for you at that end of the story that helped you manage how you felt about the world, how to regulate yourself, how to work at that level, we might have been having a very different conversation sat here. And you know, on one level there's a gratitude for the fact that you are sat here now, having traversed such a challenging landscape and been able to come to a point where you're inspiring and supporting and encouraging transformation for people having come through that in that journey. And no doubt, as your Bowen teaching progresses over the coming years, we're going to see a lot of younger Bowen practitioners who are able to find a meaningful career in supporting people. And it reminds me of there's a student within CBS who's publicly talked about her story. A few years back at one of the festivals I worked at, one of her friends sent her over to have a Bowen session with me. And from sitting up out of that session, it was the first time she'd felt in herself, in her life, and just
Yeah,
felt that grounding, and inspired her to start practicing Qigong, inspired her to go on and start training in Bowen. She's very soon about to qualify within that. And she knows she's got this career ahead of her that gives her meaning and purpose, but also a practice that helps her feel whole within herself and gives a route back to herself if she feels that she's coming out of her center.
absolutely. It's just incredible, isn't it?
It is.
Deeply transformative testimonials, and we're all here just giving the hope shot to people big time.
Yeah, yeah, and I love it. Thank you, Kathryn. I'm so grateful for you to have shared so openly, so deeply with us here today. It's been really moving. It's a beautiful thing to have been here and to have had this conversation with you. Listen, I know that the people who are listening to this are going to get so much from it as well. So, thank you so much for sharing all that you've shared today. And if people want to get in contact with you, where can we send them? What links are we going to stick in the description below so they can find you?
So I'm on Instagram. Just check out Blackburn Bowen Therapy. My website is exactly the same. You can get me on Kate Hamer on Facebook. And did I send you the links to my? Yeah, you can. Yeah, put my number on there as well.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Well, make sure all of that stuff's available for people to check out, and thank you for that. And again, thank you to everyone who's been listening here today as well. Your time and attention is really appreciated. We're doing our best to get Bowen out into the world so the stories like Kathryn's become a regular story of transformation, that people who are out there that are struggling in whatever frame of their life, that we can offer that support through Bowen. So if you've gained from this, please make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share the stuff out there for us, and we'll continue to bring you these beautiful stories of how Bowen is helping to change the world just one treatment at a time.
Just
So
one.
thank you much, everybody. Thank you, Kathryn. Really great speaking to you today.
Seriously, thanks, Ben.
Love it. And I'll look forward to catching up with you soon.
Yeah, take care.
Take care, everybody. Bye bye.